Welcome to Banking to Go by Algebra Labs. Your takeaway insights from the world of financial technology and banking, served by today's industry leaders. My name is Nizamuddin, your host for today's episode, where we will be talking about how you can take an ethical financial product to market in the world of financial technology. And I'm joined by Joan Medland and Tom Mason, founders of Shoal. Tom, Joan, thank you and welcome to the Banking to Go podcast.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Part of what we're trying to do here is explain to our viewers and our listeners how we can, especially today, bring a ethical concept to the market and go on this journey. So you both have been on this incredible journey in trying to make ethical savings product. Yeah. It's been epic, right? You needed validation with each other for a second there. You're like, it has been epic. It has been epic, and it will continue to be epic, I'm sure. And you have embarked on a mission, something which hasn't been done in the UK, certainly to date, which is to make ethical savings products available to the masses, commercially competitive as well. How did the journey begin?
Well, it all started when I joined Standard Chartered Bank. Tom was already there, and we'll get into what that looked like in a sec. But I joined the bank, and I was looking for a place to put my savings, and I found it really tricky to put my savings towards something that did good, but also made me a financial return. I know from my legal background that sometimes ESG ETFs aren't actually having the impact that you might hope they are. And so the only other option seemed to be peer-to-peer lending, which to me at that point in time felt like a step too far. So I took that away and I connected with Tom and another person who was originally our co-founder, Amit Puri. Shout out to him. And he said, hey, have a look at this product. It's called a sustainable time deposit. And it's available in Singapore and Hong Kong, but it wasn't available in the UK. So part of our journey included how we break down the barriers to entry for that particular product and how we make it accessible to people. We found a lot about those barriers along the way, but it was a really, really interesting sort of origination story. Like, there must be other people out there like me that want to do some good and are just finding it really difficult to do that and then give up.
Yeah. I think unmet need is always one of the very best catalysts for a new idea, because it gives you the belief in it, the passion to develop it. If you think, I would use this and it's not there must be other people like me. That gives you the energy, I think, to take the idea and see it through what can be quite a long and complicated process.
Yeah.
And you've both found each other within SCB.
Yeah.
So clearly there was a mutual alignment of vision there.
Yeah,
mission.
Absolutely. I mean, my background, I was originally a financial services lawyer, and then I joined SCB. I did a few different roles. But when I met Joan, I was the group chief of staff working for our CEO.
Yeah.
And I mean, SCB is an incredible organization. They're in more than 60 countries. And a big part of my role was traveling around the network. And I saw what the bank does and where it does it, the incredible diversity of projects and companies that we support. And one of the things that really brought home to me, I knew in an abstract sense that, banks generate interest by using your money. Their responsibility doesn't begin and end with custody. Your money is working hard on various things. But some of those things are incredible. And some of those things are things that might not be as closely aligned with your values. And wouldn't it be great, to Joan's point, if you could have some insight into or even control over what those things were and direct your money and make it more of a force for good?
Another really interesting thing about the experience was, taking that step back and saying, hey, I'd like this product. The first place I went to was my primary bank and logged into the banking portal, and all I saw there were just like balances and lines and nothing that really gave the indication that they knew anything about me.
So on that, so you are, Joan, not alone. 74%, I think, plus people in the UK want a product like this.
Exactly.
Like, why aren't we there? Pre-Shoal, why isn't this a thing that was addressed? What have been the barriers? What have been the obstacles? I'm sure our listeners will be interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a simple idea, but very difficult in the execution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're very lucky to be part of the network that Tom was just talking about. So part of the really interesting aspects of this project, or this product that we're able to democratize for people for the first time in the UK, is that it is basically loans to local projects across the developing world. So you can invest in sort of infrastructure, or you can help to offset CO2 by putting your money into the savings product that then ends up supporting the building of a clean building or clean railways. So that product itself has, for example, a very high minimum deposit amount. But you can find other products in the UK, but they'll be more focused and smaller balance sheets, because actually finding sustainable assets is a really, really tricky thing to do. It's the credit of the sort of institution behind us that has this deep network that's been, in Africa and Asia for, decades now, just doing the work locally. And that really, really helps. Because not only does it have a bigger balance sheet, that also means that our product is more financially competitive than a lot of other sustainable products, which is super important to us. We think that sustainable innovation has moved on now, that people don't have to trade the world for their wallet, sort of to the quote.
Shout out, there we go. Good for the world.
Exactly.
Good for the wallet, yeah.
So everything that you're going to find on the Shoal app will be financially competitive, but also doing good. We don't believe in the green tax anymore. That's a sort of outdated thought.
170 years of history, Standard Chartered. Big balance sheet, incubated out of Standard Chartered where you both met. So it's been an easy journey so far. Clearly, you've got all the backing, you've got the idea, guys.
It's been a journey. I would say the link to the previous question as well, that the combination of skills and attributes and experience you need to bring a product like this to market quite difficult to assemble. I would say with Shoal now, we've got two great partners in Standard Chartered and Algebra, and we need both. So SCB has 170 years of history, as you say. It's got a really interesting geographical footprint, and it supports this array of projects and companies that make up the sustainable finance portfolio. So it's one of the very few banks that can take your money in places like London and New York and Dubai, deploy it in these markets and bring it back safely with the interest, which is fantastic. What it is not is a UK retail bank, and nor does it want to be. That is off strategy. So for us to bring Shoal to the UK, where we think there's this incredible demand and where people will really get a lot of value out of this, we needed another partner. We needed a tech partner who could deliver best-in-class digital offering, still with that assurance that your money is safe and secure, the app will deliver a good user experience, and you will be able to link through that to the Standard Chartered portfolio and do this good with your money. But you can't have one without the other. I think you really need to pull it all together.
Do and you talked earlier about the barriers to entry. We can touch on that for a second. So there's the minimum deposit amounts, things like that along sustainable investments. The really impactful ones usually require you to have more money, but we've broken that down by basically creating a sort of aggregator structure. The other barriers to entry are a lack of transparency over what's actually sustainable about this. You can often receive really lengthy reports, but not everyone wants to really read that at the end of the day. So what we've actually done in the Shoal app is to innovate around how we bring that information to people in a way that's engaging. So we've created a sort of calculator around your savings for the first time ever, really innovative stuff. Instead of thinking about like a carbon calculator where you buy credits, actually, when you put your money with Shoal and you save, you'll be able to see how much CO2 or clean water you're supporting just by saving, just by switching your savings to Shoal. It's fantastic and it's so impactful.
So on that, so it's a brilliant idea. And I think the thing that I'd love to tease out now is we have a great idea, we have a great home in Standard Chartered, tech partner through Algebra. In your journey from the tech side of things, we now have a marketplace where fintech is, it's everywhere. It's ever present. You have different stacks. What's been the journey like for you guys in terms of finding the tech and making sure you get the right tech partner? What have been some of the challenges along the way? What pieces of advice would you give to others, both within a large institution or even starting out a new venture, in terms of finding that right tech partner to bring a product to market?
That's a really great question. We have learned a lot about that. And I think a really obvious first answer is bring someone in tech into your team early on. Tom and I went through the incubation program. We have a kind of network of support around us, but we're not tech people. And so we hired that in. And, there is a level of commitment that you need in your founding team, especially from the tech side of things, to get things right. And for us, it didn't really work to have that team outsourced to begin with. Yeah. I think that was a lesson that we would sort of unpick if we were to do it all again. Bring that person in the team for sure.
And I don't want to be too hard on ourselves because, as we've touched on, this idea has taken us a few years to bring to fruition. And what's available now wasn't available then. I think that the tech landscape has evolved and improved, and it would be a little bit easier for us now. But as Joan says, have your expert in-house early, have them really committed, have someone who knows what good looks like, because it's quite easy to be blinded by the science if you are new to it.
Yeah.
But I think that the BaaS landscape more broadly is evolving from a sort of one-size-fits-all. I kind of think of it as like a sort of Gildan t-shirt where you could buy one and stamp your own logo, but it was fundamentally the same thing. Yeah. It's much more bespoke now. When you look at a partner like Algebra, where there is the list of services and you pick the things that you need to shape what it is you're trying to build, that's much more helpful. That's much, I think, faster and more effective in terms of getting your vision into the place where you want it to be.
So in this series, we've spoken to individuals who go from describing BaaS as we've known it historically to now FaaS.
Right.
And what you've just described perfectly is that evolution where you have a BaaS system, which is an extension of a legacy system, usually focused on core banking. And then now you have a FaaS system, which is fintech as a service, which is far more modularized, far more bespoke, far more, not pick and mix per se, but easier to do. Yeah. So not being techies, I mean, the one thing that obviously Shoal is a really values and mission driven product enterprise. How have you personally ensured that the values and the mission, the ethics of what you're building has stayed true without compromising on the commerciality, which I think is the real difficult balance that people...
It's such an interesting question. And again, I think what helps is we're kind of Shoal's ideal customers. I mean, for me, I like to do the right thing. I like something that's sustainable. But it has to be good quality. And when you look at financial services, that also includes the financial competitiveness. As Joan says, we wanted this to be accessible to everyone. We wanted it to pay a good return. Those things have always really been non-negotiables, I think, as we've worked through this, which is one of the reasons why it's taken so long.
One of the really interesting exercises that we went through was how we describe how the product works as well, and how you do that in an honest way, but that people can understand, because sometimes financial products can be quite complicated, the way that the structure works. And, you know, we're in the context of ASSA rulings around sustainable language. We saw what happened with HSBC. We're, of course, nowhere kind of near that in terms of our marketing. But for us, it's very, very important that, you know, we say it as it is. We have this sort of high level, and then there's the information there, and it is what it is, right? We're not sort of misleading people around anything to do with our claims at the end of the day. But taking a step back to the question that you previously asked about how we went about sort of selecting our BaaS providers. We did a full RFP. We reviewed about 7 different BaaS.
It was more. I think about a dozen in the first round.
You know, we obviously looked at commercials. We obviously tried to do what we can in terms of the sort of technology and what documentation they make available, and et cetera, et cetera. But one of the very important parts as well was distribution. So how can this partner really help us to get Shoal out there? Do they have a network that we're able to tap into? Are they willing to do introductions for us? Or are they willing to help us to sort of market, or et cetera, et cetera? That partnership in your BaaS provider is a really key aspect of that relationship, I think.
And a very rare thing, frankly, right? So I think most BaaS providers will do the back-end tech stack and not necessarily have distribution, unless it's distribution elsewhere. The one thing I'm really interested in is, and I think some of our listeners and viewers will be interested is, and Joan, you call yourself an entrepreneur, right? So this is being entrepreneurial within an institution, which is a difficult thing to achieve. Perhaps some insights into, look, we will have, you know, through Algebra Labs, big banks, large corporates, telcos, whoever wants to do some form of digital banking, right? Now, it has to happen internally first. So you're potentially talking about legacy systems, you're potentially talking about colleagues who worked on big projects. Where do you begin navigating the internal culture of a big place to try and do something disruptive? What does that look like? Any insights, wisdom, please?
Share about that. I mean, so just to set the landscape, it's obviously a different beast to be innovating within a regulated entity. There is just a very different risk appetite between a traditional startup and a bank. And that means layers, and that means people that you have to engage with and bring along on your story and your journey. And it's quite difficult to, at that point, then also kind of control who's in the group and who gets to influence and input into the project. But that's a really key point, because you're not going to be able to get everyone. So I think along and understanding and working together on one thing, because there will just be so many different views. So I think you need to find your key stakeholders within the bank and get a key sponsor who can influence. And that needs to be someone quite senior at the top. With us, we were really lucky with SE Ventures. That's to an extent their role. They were able to influence at a senior level, but we also had great senior sponsors throughout the bank that were really helping us along the way in private bank, UK CEOs, et cetera. And that really helped.
Yeah, I think if you've got that air cover, that gets you moving. And then so much of it's personality driven as well. If you can find some true believers who will help you keep things moving, because most people aren't hostile to innovation, they're just busy. And it's not necessarily something that's part of their job or will help them on day one. So you're bringing work to their desk, trying to deliver your dream, and it's not necessarily that welcome. So if you can find some people within the org who will help you keep it moving, and also reinforce your own belief that you're working on something worthwhile, that helps a lot too, I think.
I'll also add, and this isn't necessarily something that we were able to benefit from because of the nature of Shoal. We were pretty high profile within Standard Chartered Bank. We did get quite a lot of attention because we were doing something new. We saw other people being successful and keeping it stealth. So, keeping it really quiet, getting like the one or two decision makers that you really need, but just going for it. And there were some people that actually started after us, but got it done before us doing something quite similar. And we're just like, yeah.
I think, again, it kind of comes down to partnerships as well. So much of this does, internally and externally, just finding people who will work with you and help you get it done, because it is too much, I think. I mean, thank goodness we've got each other. I think that is a huge part of why we've been able to keep going.
Because I was just about to go into that, which is like the dynamics of you both within your broader ecosystem of Standard Chartered must have helped. I mean, your many decade plus years of working in the organization, Joan coming in and tag teaming. And I think what I'm hearing is obviously the importance of bringing the right people on the journey with you.
That's exactly I knew who to call, and Joan knew how to get them to do what we wanted. So between us,
I mean, that is a dream. That is a dream scenario, guys. Perfect. And what's next for Shoal? What does it look like? What's the dream for you? Give me. Let's think 5 years from today. Yeah. What's the dream for what Shoal could look like in your eyes? Forget any limitations.
I am really excited about the sort of core thing, the core idea of just making it easier for people to use their money in a way that's more sustainable. It's one of the most impactful things that you can do, and I don't think people even appreciate that. But Make My Money Matter did some research to show that just by switching your pension to a green option is 21 times more effective at avoiding CO2 than stopping flying, going vegan, switching your energy provider, all together. Just switching your savings or your pension can be that impactful. And, but it's just too difficult for people right now. And we think that there's a real opportunity to disrupt that, not only through financial products, but, thinking about profiling interesting sustainable brands or just doing other lifestyle things that could be really, really impactful and easier.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, empowering people. It's so easy to feel helpless and disempowered. If you don't think your money's working for you in the way that you want it to, you can write to the CEO, probably won't hear back. You can march, you can throw paint on the building, but not everyone has the appetite for that kind of activism. But if there were a mainstream option that's easy, remunerative, and makes sure that you know what your money's doing, you can see the impact that it's having, I don't see why most people wouldn't switch to it. So I think for me, the most important thing is to get this first product up and running and the proof of concept there. And then it's really twofold. It's build out the offering to help showcase the best of green and sustainable financial products, as Joan says, and also take it on the road. Because I think if we can do the Shoal concept here, there's no reason it wouldn't work anywhere where there's a population of people who are digitally savvy and care about sustainability, which is probably more markets than not.
That's what's so exciting about the Shoal product, right? Which is, I think it speaks to especially a younger consumer. And we know that the younger consumers generally across all jurisdictions of the world are asking really challenging questions about why are we not doing more for the environment and sustainability. And I think what you're describing here is obviously a product that is commercially viable. And the reality is there's a disproportionate impact of climate change, of lack of sustainability in the developing world or the global south. And I think a product like this could just really beautifully bridge those worlds together.
And just a way of unlocking all that private capital that's frustrated and wants to be able to do more than it is. I mean, governments, in my view, are not doing enough. But even if they were, we shouldn't wait. If we can find a way to let people use their own money to support these projects and companies, then all to the good.
Anything to add, Joan?
I mean, if you just think about the examples of the projects, again, I mentioned, for example, like green infrastructure or green buildings, and you know, those are great. It moves the world on in a direction, but it also goes towards things like microfinance loans in India, and you know, really impactful stuff that can actually make a difference. I was sat here listening to Tom, thinking about, like, you know, all of the different ways that actually you win in your wallet, but actually you're really helping the global planet.
Advice you would give to individuals or new founders, new startups, about how they should conduct their search for the right tech partner. So just really thinking about, are there certain criteria they should be thinking about, how they, because again, when you've looked at 7, 10, however, you mentioned the lack of distribution, but how about vision and mission and being aligned, and ethos? Because I think it's very easy. I mean, you can get really good tech, right? And I think there's an interesting notion that I've been grappling with, which is it's tech agnostic, right? It's technology agnostic, right? If the same tech stack is being used to do something unsustainable and is being used to do something sustainable, is that right, or is that part of the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. I mean, first off, not all tech is made equal either, which we've learned through our experience. And there are a lot of variety in terms of what the offering is from BAS. I think it's still kind of a nascent area, and it's innovating, and there's new people out there that are doing really great customer-centric sort of solutions, modules, etc. But some of the sort of older legacy guys now are not really delivering very well, or, you know, they kind of box you in. And, you know, that goes to a fundamental question of what we were talking about earlier. Do you build or do you buy? Which is an interesting one, maybe for another time. But in terms of our own criteria, we were talking about commercials with people. We were looking through their documentation. We were getting a sense of their partnership capabilities, both through their sort of stakeholder level. Who are they bringing to the table? Are they senior enough? Can they get it done? Are they going to prioritize us at the end of the day? And then also, are they, you know, willing to do things like, you know, make intros, and, you know, are they creating a sort of network effect of their own clients and offering that up as well? But then, of course, at the end of the day, we are a sustainable company. It's really important to us that we're sort of working with people of a like mind, and we obviously looked through, you know, and scored. Actually, what we did was create a matrix and scored them and had weighting, and that was one of the criteria that we had at the end of the day. Now, look, I think it's really interesting if you think about sustainability and core banking features like payments and things like that. There's a lot of innovation in this space as well. So I've seen like sustainable payments as a sort of idea where people are taking clips from the interchange and that's going to charity as an innovation. There's also blockchain solutions and things like that. I mean, this isn't stuff that everyday people would even be aware of, but it is something that's quite important to us because it demonstrates that commitment. And I think when there's a commitment there, then that partnership is even stronger.
The one I found, I think, most difficult to balance was track record, because obviously it's helpful if you can look at things that a company has delivered in the past and think, well, okay, that's what you're capable of. That's what I will get if I come and work with you. But equally, some of the most exciting work is done by people who are at new organizations or have recently left these bigger companies to found something. And I think the way we got through that was chemistry. I mean, when we got to our shortlist, we met everybody. And you do get a sense when you share a room for an afternoon and have the pitch conversation and work through what it is you're trying to build. Are we aligned in this? Do we see this in the same way? And I think that's helpful.
So guys, Shoal, the name, what does it mean? Where's it from?
This is the product of a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
It's tricky finding a name. I think that's one of the biggest challenges out there because names are taken, right? For us, it symbolizes the idea that we're more powerful together. And it's a nod to our sort of deposit aggregator structure where we're actually grouping people's deposits together and then placing them on deposit. So
does it mean something?
It's more of a, I would say, a mental image. We're stronger and we're safer when we move together. And you don't need to be a big fish in order to achieve something. So with Shoal, as Joan said, everybody puts in a little bit and you create something quite beautiful, quite powerful. And we like the imagery of it as well because it is sort of clean water and silvery fish and the sort of things that the money saved through Shoal will go to support and help drive.
And what is exciting you most about the next part of the journey? Because it's been hard. It's not easy doing it.
Do you want to go on?
I mean, for me, when I look at it, it's exciting for us as founders of Shoal and also where the industry is at the moment. I mean, we've worked for a long time. We're very clear about what it is we're building and are about to launch, and just seeing that out in the market, seeing how it lands and the take up is going to be so exciting, having real customers and serving them and starting to build that impact. But I also think while we've been working on Shoal, the world hasn't been standing still, and we're seeing momentum. And I'm not concerned about competitors as such, because no one's doing exactly what we're doing. And we think what we're building is strong enough to stand anyway. But there is a real momentum now that makes me feel very hopeful, very excited that financial services more broadly is moving in this new and very exciting direction. And I think of it as kind of a virtuous arms race. As people have these ideas and start to implement them, it will be easier and more exciting and more impactful for people to use their money in ways that just hasn't been possible before. I think savings in particular has been incredibly stale. You compete on rate and that's it. There's now, there is something new out there, and I want to see if it's as popular as I think it will be.
Yeah, I mean, I echo. I'm just excited to get out there. We've been incubating for 3.5 years now, and it'll be so exciting to actually be in the market and have that reception, as Tom says. I'm super optimistic about it. You're right as well in that the market has changed in the past year or two since we started building. I think the sustainability focus has, if we're honest, taken a little bit of a dip after Crimea, after, people are kind of in this sort of mode where they're like, I need to protect my wealth. And there's, a little bit of a sort of shaky global dynamic. But the thing about sustainability is that it's actually something that's fundamental to the risk profile of your financial investments, and it's only going in one direction. So it's not a fad. We might be looking at different things right now, like AI, et cetera, but actually I think it's got the staying power for the long term.
And I think that, please, Tom.
Well, I was just thinking about what Joan said, and the way climate change in particular has really begun to intrude in the UK in the last 3 or 4 years. I think it's become much more noticeable. So even people who had previously been deniers of this, I think notice on the news and also just when they leave the house that this is serious, this is something that needs to be addressed. And hopefully that makes them more thoughtful about what they can do, and we're making it easier for them to contribute. But I feel a groundswell here that's partly, I think, gives me anxiety because it's driven by very real changes in the world that we need to do something about, but also gives me the optimism that that change will actually happen.
What my takeaway from this conversation actually is a really optimistic one, but also one where, the reality of a Shoal product is Shoal shouldn't be an exceptional product in the market. It needs to become the norm. Yes. Because the reality is, we have a world that is changing, and you want consumers to get to a place where actually a savings product focused on sustainability is just par for the course for the future of the world.
You don't have to be wealthy to use it. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. It's just there. And I think actually one of the most interesting things we learned as we built Shoal, and one of the things I had to get comfortable with, was kind of letting go of the original vision in some ways and flexing, listening to what people want and find appealing. When we came up with the idea, we wanted to design it so you could be very specific about what your money supported. I'm putting in £500 for 6 months, tagging it to renewable energy. I'm putting in another £1,000 for a year for clean water. And when we began to test that with customers, they didn't like it. They said, well, that's homework. I don't want to decide which is the best. Just do good stuff, and that will be enough for me. So it's the balance, I think, between giving people enough detail to be credible, but giving them something simple enough to use without a thought if they're in a hurry, and having that backdrop.
And just riffing on your point, like that it needs to become standard, and it's sort of the whole symbolism behind Shoal, because as consumers we are powerful. You may not think your individual choices are going to make that much of a difference, but when we're together and we're saying, hey, no, we want to make sure that our savings are sustainable, then that spurs the banks on to go and find more sustainable products. That's effectively what the impact is by switching your savings to Shoal. It means that they have to go out and find more sustainable assets to go and invest in. And likewise, if you could sort of disseminate that across different banks, having that pressure on each of them means that they won't be investing in things like oil and et cetera over the longer term.
And I think at the heart of that is, trust, we know, is the key differentiator as to why people may or may not use a product, especially in financial services. And I think as part of that trust, to the points that you made earlier, it's finding an ecosystem approach. So you have the product, great. You have the the book underneath the product, great. The tech partner also has to be trusted. And I think that's where, things are headed in terms of the future of fintech. People are going to start, especially younger, more conscious consumers, they will look under the hood and think, okay, who are your partners? How is it going? Actually, are they all aligned to the vision that you're describing to us? And I think that's going to be very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right.
Amazing. Joan, Tom, thank you so much. Congrats on everything that you've built, and we look forward to where it goes next.
Thank you very much.